Got some breaking news out of MSG. Johnny Bones Jones with a third-round TKO of Stipe Miocic has defended the UFC heavyweight championship title for the first time in his career. He now holds the most title fight victories in UFC history at 18. Stipe Miocic announced his retirement at the end of this. Can't say the same about Jon Jones. And to help us sort out what went down at MSG at UFC 309, we say hello to CBS Sports combat sport analyst Brian Campbell. BC, let's start with the aftermath a little bit. Stipe Miocic announced his retirement. Jon Jones went the other way. Says, I'm going to keep fighting, and then seem open to multiple possibilities. He's going to have talks with Dana White and the rest of the folks at TKO. Where do you think Jon Jones goes next with this?
Look, I think if you follow Dana White, the UFC CEO's words this week closely, Jon's going to have to go through the interim champion, Tom Aspinall, to unify that belt to get to the fight that Jon really wants, right? The super fight against light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira. All in all, for as tumultuous as a week it was for Jones, from a PR standpoint, with all the talk about ducking Aspinall, even though he had the 42-year-old former champion Miocic in front of him, you've got to take your hat off at the end of the day to what Jon Jones is able to do and who he is when he steps foot inside that cage. Just his second fight in nearly a 5-year period, coming off of an 18-month layoff, a torn pectoral muscle, and serious surgery that set him back. Yet death, taxes, and Jon Jones remains the best fighter in UFC history and one of the best pound for pound today. A thorough, complete performance. But like you said, Russ, the best news for fans might be that Jon's not going anywhere. And as Dana White said, if he wants to continue on and fight, he's going to have to defend that title, and that's great news for the division and for MMA fans around the world.
And let's circle back to the way Jones looked against Stipe Miocic. Afterwards, Jones, first of all, looked about as happy as I've ever seen him post-fight, and also he gave all credit to Miocic, said that guy is tough. He doesn't react when you punch him in the face. When you hit him with a spinning back heel right to the midsection, that's what got it done. What a performance. What a finish from Jon Jones.
I mean, this is who Jon Jones is, the absolute gamer. But let's be fair. We knew that much about him as a heavyweight coming in, even though we've been talking about the inevitable move of Jon Jones coming up to a second division for nearly a decade, 15 years. But when Jon Jones won that vacant title against Cyril Gane in 2023, the fight lasted just over 2 minutes. It was complete dominance on the ground for Jones. But it still left open questions of what would he look like against the bigger men, especially against somebody like Miocic, with knockout power in both hands and a legendary chin that proves he's not going to go away easy. So what did we see? A calm, poised, gamer version of Bones Jones like we always see, who took Miocic down in that opening round. And this was the key. Routinely barraged him with hard elbows to the face, wore down the gas tank and the will of the aging former champion. And what we saw from there through rounds 2 and 3 was really just creative target practice from Jones. We know he's going to have that tough kickboxing game and the variety of kicks, and we saw that tonight as he routinely hit Miocic hard to the body and really pulled on that gas tank. But how about the boxing, too? The heavy jabs from Jones that set up what turned out to be the finishing blow with that spinning back kick. If Jones at 37 can land fight-ending strikes like that against a division of taller, bigger, typically slower fighters, this could be a run for Jon Jones. And we've always said that from the beginning, when he would eventually move up. Obviously, Tom Aspinall could be a big target in his future, and Tom represents the heavyweights of the future. But Jon Jones is still the present, still the best in class, and we saw that on full display, regardless of how old or how long outside the cage his opponent in Miocic had coming in.
The journey continues for Johnny Bones Jones. Stipe Miocic calling a career at the end of this one. A legendary fighter in his own right. You said a legendary jaw. The man's been the heavyweight champion as well. What kind of legacy does Miocic leave behind in the octagon?
Blue collar, hardworking, humble, honest, never gets caught up in social media or trash talk or anything about this game. but getting in there, fighting hard, and never saying die. Here's a two-time heavyweight champion, the most decorated and accomplished heavyweight champion in UFC history with 4 title defenses. And oh, by the way, he joins Jones in being the only fighters in UFC history to defeat a contemporary and Hall of Famer in the great Daniel Cormier. And Miocic did it twice, by the way. What he leaves with is an incredible resume of just a hardworking, honest, like I said, hardworking individual who's never about the money or the spoils that come with this game. A true family man, a full-time firefighter who told me this week, win or lose, he's going to be back in the fire station in a few days. Then he's going to be ready for his next shift in suburban Ohio. What a man and what a career he leaves behind.
What a hero, Stipe Miocic. Well done on his career and continuing to fight the fires. One last thing, we got to talk about the fight right before the main event because Charles Oliveira, look, he dominated Michael Chandler for 4 rounds, and we almost had like the crazy comeback of the night where Chandler just went nuts in round 5, knowing he needed a knockout, nearly got it. Oliveira moves on. Chandler calls out Conor McGregor again. What's next for either of these guys?
It seems for Charles Oliveira at age 35, despite having lost 2 of 3 fights coming in, that he's in position to get back potentially that lightweight title that he lost to Islam Makhachev, the champion now, 2 years ago. Makhachev will likely defend his title against Arman Tsarukyan, the top contender, who won a split decision over Oliveira earlier this year. But what about Do Bronx, the greatest finisher in UFC history, the most submission wins, and he relied on that grappling, the dominant offense on his feet with the striking, as you said, to put forth 4 absolutely dominant rounds. To his credit, he fought off the great Michael Chandler, who can go berserker mode at any point, as he did in round 5. Chandler sat out 2 years waiting on McGregor, and you had to feel for him. But he came into this fight in the best shape of his career at 38, really put forth a tough effort. And I hope for Michael Chandler's case that he does get that McGregor fight, because this is one of the hardest workers in the UFC and someone who's always ready for a big fight on short notice or whatever. But for Oliveira, he's not done chasing titles, and you have to wonder if he can get back into a rematch with Makhachev, if maybe things can go different. We'll find out in the near future.
All right, UFC 309 is in the books. Johnny Bones Jones, the star that shines brightest at the end of it all. UFC 310 coming your way, by the way, from Vegas on December 7th. Brian Campbell, BC, thanks so much, man. And here's a look at all the main card results from UFC 309. And it was Jon Jones who finished the night with a flourish, that spinning back kick right to the midsection of Stipe Miocic. Ends in a TKO in round 3. And in the co-main, Charles Oliveira with a very impressive unanimous decision win over Michael Chandler. UFC 309, all done now.